Support comes from Gemma, architects, planners, and designers seeking to bring joy to their clients and communities. Details at gemastl.com.
From the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this is The Gateway. Today is Thursday, June 12th. I'm Arla Kuziz. The world premiere of This House at Opera Theater of St. Louis is rooted in 20th century Black American life through the eyes of departed ancestors.
To be Black in America is to be, in a sense, living in a ghost story, in the shadow of slavery, in the shadow of the civil rights movement.
St. Louis Public Radio's Jeremy Goodwin talks with the Pulitzer Prize winning playwright and her poet daughter who wrote the opera. That's coming up after this news on the Gateway. The Missouri legislature has passed a bill that contains $100 million in storm relief for St. Louis. Members of the House voted 143-2 to pass the legislation yesterday. Because the House passed the Senate bill without changing anything, it now goes to Governor Mike Kehoe, who is expected to sign it. Several St. Louis representatives spoke in favor of the legislation, including Representative Kimberly Ann Collins, whose district was hit by the May 16th tornado.
We lean on each other. We're holding each other. We're taking care of each other. We did it before the tornado. We did it during the tornado. And we're doing it after the tornado.
The bill also contains funding for other statewide projects that includes $50 million for the Radioisotope Science Center at the University of Missouri Research Reactor. Missouri lawmakers also passed a bill to try and keep the Kansas City Chiefs and Royals. As St. Louis Public Radio's Sarah Kellogg reports, reactions to the legislation from lawmakers was mixed.
Members of the Missouri House voted 90-58 to pass the legislation. The bill now goes to Governor Mike Kehoe, who is expected to sign it. The stadium portion of the bill allows the state to help pay for new stadiums or stadium renovations for the Kansas City Chiefs and Royals. It provides matching funds by covering annual bond payments to the amount that the teams are currently generating in taxes in Missouri. Representative Jamie Gregg says his district won't have an economic windfall if the Chiefs stay.
I'm in Christian County. My people don't go to the game very often. I don't get dollars from the Chiefs.
The bill is a response to the Kansas legislature, which passed a bill offering to pay 70% of the cost of building new stadiums. In Jefferson City, I'm Sarah Kellogg, St. Louis Public Radio.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency is encouraging residents to start applying for assistance immediately. Willie Nunn, the FEMA coordinator for St. Louis, says it's imperative that residents fill out the forms carefully in order to get access to aid quickly.
We have to have folks register, tell their story so we can get their needs, so we don't haphazardly start a program that doesn't help the people that really need it.
Missouri has seen 6 major storms in recent months. Nunn encourages residents to be sure to select the May 16th storm while filling out their forms. He says residents should hear from a FEMA representative within days after their application is submitted. Demonstrators in St. Louis have been showing solidarity with Los Angeles in protesting ICE raids. St. Louis Public Radio's Olivia Mizell was at one of the demonstrations in St. Louis yesterday and has this report.
No man, no wall, sanctuary for all.
St. Louis residents and immigration advocates gathered across from Union Station on Wednesday before marching to protest mass ICE raids taking place nationwide. In California, days of demonstrations prompted President Donald Trump to deploy thousands of National Guard members, an action not taken by a president for decades. Angel Flores is an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, one of the groups that planned the protest. He says he fears that there is threat of a similar response in St. Louis and other U.S. cities.
No matter where you are, no matter what your city is, we need you in the streets.
Protesters also gathered at the Tam Avenue overpass. Thousands of demonstrations criticizing the Trump administration are planned nationwide for this Saturday, including in St. Louis. I'm Olivia Mizell, St. Louis Public Radio.
St. Louis County Executive Sam Page has renewed his push to use RAM settlement dollars to support a regional violence reduction effort. The $1.75 million would help support Save Lives Now, which is coordinated by the East-West Gateway Council of Governments. It would allow the county to invest in areas like mental health and violence interruption.
Our residents have asked us to be leaders in this public health crisis. They've asked us for investments that reflect the values of their lives and they've asked us for action.
The council had initially proposed using opioid settlement funds for Save Lives Now, but they pulled back after Page raised concerns with the legality. They've not yet acted on his request for Ram's settlement dollars. Page spoke yesterday at an event marking Gun Violence Awareness Month. The Trump administration is rolling back regulations on toxic compounds known as forever chemicals. St. Louis Public Radio's Jonathan All reports a researcher at Missouri University of Science and Technology is looking for ways to quantify and reverse contamination among fish populations in the St. Louis area.
Margaret Taiwo has been studying the levels of polyfluoroalkyls, or PFAS, in 3 kinds of fish in the Mississippi River near the confluence of the Missouri River and in Horseshoe Lake in Madison County. She says all 3 species are showing threatening levels of the forever chemicals.
It's not just about studying their bioaccumulation pattern alone. It's about what solution can we provide to eliminate them from the environment. So several studies have been ongoing about mineralizing PFAS in the environment.
The PhD candidate at Missouri S&T says the next phase of her study is to see if she can develop microbes that can be added to ecosystems to naturally remove PFAS among fish populations. In Rolla, I'm Jonathan All, St. Louis Public Radio.
A Metro East-based healthcare provider opened 16 housing units in Cahokia Heights yesterday. Southern Illinois Healthcare Foundation leaders believe these one-bedroom units are more than just housing. With added health amenities, they also provide a more holistic form of healthcare in the lower-income community. CEO Larry McCulley says something like this is needed everywhere.
We've got to change the dynamics of how we create a healthier environment and a healthier body for individuals, for them to live healthier, but more importantly, for us to continue to lower the cost of care for others as well.
SIHF Healthcare will offer the homes to residents making 30% or less of the area's median income. For households in Cahokia Heights, that's about $30,000 per year. This month, the Opera Theater of St. Louis is producing a new opera by one of the world's most celebrated living playwrights. Lynn Nottage, the only woman so far to win the Pulitzer Prize for drama twice, wrote the libretto for This House with her daughter Ruby Aiyo Gerber. Ricky Ian Gordon composed the music. As St. Louis Public Radio's Jeremy Goodwin reports, the opera looks at African American history through the intersecting powers of memory and place.
This House is in many ways a ghost story. Co-librettist Ruby Aiyo Gerber says that's an apt way to talk about the African American experience.
We are constantly living in this moment that's marked by all of the past that came with us. To be Black in America is to be, in a sense, living in a ghost story, in the shadow of slavery, in the shadow of the civil rights movement.
The ghosts in this story lived in one family's Harlem brownstone across 100 years. They interact with a woman in the present day, Zoe. It's her childhood home, and she's thinking about moving back in. The opera is inspired by Gerber's family history, which she shares with her writing partner and mother, the playwright Lynn Nottage, who says,
I think one of the things that we drew upon was the fact that we are a multi-generational family.
Nottage grew up in a Brooklyn brownstone and moved back there as an adult. Then she lived there with her father while raising 2 children. Nottage says her conversations with her daughter Ruby about family history and the opera overlapped.
We have been mother and daughter, now we are collaborators. That it allowed us to have conversations about family, about each other. And that's really what the opera is about, is a century of conversations that occur in the span of 2 hours.
Nottage and Gerber worked with veteran opera composer Ricky Ian Gordon.
I've been going to the opera since I was 8. Part of the reason I write opera is I've been obsessed with it since I was a little boy.
His score weaves in tastes of jazz, musical theater, and other styles of American music. In this early sequence, visitors crowd the house's parlor for a Harlem Renaissance-era party.
In the parlor, jazz lingers, for the piano,
The central character Zoe learns her family history is filled with good people who had clashing views on 20th century life and the importance of the house itself. Zoe's brother Lyndon still lives there. His partner Thomas pleads for the 2 men to move to Valencia, Spain. Gordon, the opera's composer, says it's clear why they dream of escape.
They're obviously both ill from what killed everyone I knew in the 80s and 90s, which was AIDS. That was a really intense scene for me to write. Well, for one thing, I lost my partner to AIDS in 1996. And then it's like we see the devolution of the whole theme of Valencia, but it's dissolving before our eyes or by our ears.
That's baritone Justin Austin and bass baritone Christian Purcell. Lynn Nottage says the opera's protagonist Zoe finds that she'll build a stronger future if it rests on the foundations of her past.
She has to fully come to terms with and embrace the past that she left behind, and those ghosts are talking to her, and she understands that in order for her to move forward, she has to walk with them.
And American ghosts are the sort who linger. I'm Jeremy Goodwin, St. Louis Public Radio.
Tracy Tong edited that report. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a listener-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis. Music is by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Arla Kuziz, and from the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this has been The Gateway.